Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. For those who don't know me, my name is Kayla. This is The Fire, and this channel is all about partnering with you and meeting you where you are as you seek to grow your relationship with Christ. For those who missed last week's message, in last week's video, we talked about the still small voice of God, and we looked at the life of Elijah and how Elijah was able to hear the still small voice of God and how that voice changed his life. If you missed that message, go ahead and click the link at the top of the video to catch up. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into the word. But before we do, as always, I'm going to give you guys a couple of worship songs to listen to. As always, you can pause the video and listen to them now or listen to them at the end of the video. All right, guys, let's get right into it. So in today's message, we're going to talk about the timing of God. I know this is a topic that a lot of people love to talk about because God's timing sometimes seems insane, but however, it also seems like it's always perfect. So we're going to talk about time, we're going to break it down, and we're going to jump right into it. But first, let me read you guys a scripture. We're coming from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and I'm going to be reading verses 1 and verse 11. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 says, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." Then skip to verse 11, and verse 11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end." So I wanted to read these two verses to you because I really want us to focus in on time and how God perceives time and the purpose of time. So first I want to give you guys a little bit of context. So in this particular chapter, Solomon's talking about time and how there's a time and a purpose for every activity on the earth. And so in chapter 3, Solomon really goes into how there's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pull up. There's a time to weep and a time to dance and rejoice. So there's a time for everything. So what I really want to break down here is how God views time and how time is very different from how we view time in the eyes of God. So there are two different types of time, or two different types of time that we operate on. There is the Chronos time and there is the Kairos time. So let me break down the Chronos time first. So the Chronos time is a time that we as humans operate on. That is that chronological, in order time, that time that ticks all day, that time that we feel like we don't have enough of, that time that gives us a birthday every single year, that time that keeps moving. That is Chronos time. Chronos time is very sequential, it's very linear, it is very orderly in the sense that it doesn't go backwards, it always goes forward. And so that is the type of time that we as humans operate on. So there's a different type of time, which is the Kairos time, and that's the time that God operates on. Kairos time is very different than Chronos time. So Kairos time is very much so qualitative, whereas Chronos time is very quantitative. Kairos time is about quality. So it is not really about how long, but it's about what happens within that time span. Kairos time is also precise. It never misses a step. It is also appointed. And so this is the time that God operates on. And when you really begin to understand that, you start to understand why you get frustrated when you feel like God is taking too long. It's because we're looking at Chronos and God is in the Kairos. So I want us to really focus on those two different types of times as I continue to talk about this passage throughout this video. So moving back to the Kairos time, when we look at the Kairos time, that word Kairos is actually derived from archery and weaving. And when you look at that word and how it was used in archery, it is used as the moment in which an arrow may be filled with sufficient force to penetrate a target. It is also the moment in which the shuttle in weaving could be passed through the threads on the loom. In the classical period, this word is the moments when opportune action was made. And so when you look at that word Kairos and how it is used in different actions such as weaving or in archery, you see that Kairos is all about hitting a target at a specific time. It's all about an opportune time for action. And so again, this is the foundation for how we understand time as we continue this video. So when we look back at the passage in Ecclesiastes, we see that Solomon opens up with saying, "To everything there is a season." and to everything there is a time for every purpose under heaven. And so we see that everything that happens in our lives, there's a specific time in which it's supposed to happen. So then when we hop down to verse 11, we see that Solomon talks about something interesting. He talks about how God has put eternity or the world in our hearts, except he has not given us the ability to completely understand it. But God also makes everything beautiful in his time. So let me break that down for you a little bit. So what Solomon is saying here is that God has put in us eternity. So we are always and constantly longing for something that is eternal or something that is permanent and not temporal. And so the reason why we get so frustrated with not understanding time is because we want to know it now, because we're always longing for what's next. And so we were literally created for something that is eternal and that happens forever. And so we're constantly longing for, well, what's next? Well, what's next? What's next? But the thing is, God really wants us to rest in the timing that he has for our lives. God has a specific timeline. He has a specific time for every purpose under heaven. And when you are stuck in the Chronos time, constantly in that very linear timeline, you are going to miss it. You're going to get frustrated. God does not operate that way. He does not operate on linear or quantitative. He is all about precision and accuracy and qualitative. So I want you guys who might be in a season of, God, this is taking too long. I don't understand. I've been waiting forever. God knows what you need when you need it. There's a time for every purpose under heaven. The beautiful thing about God is that, again, his timing is so precise. There's a reason why you don't have what you thought you should. For example, if you're longing for a boyfriend, perhaps the Lord is working on that guy before he gives him to you. Homie could be out there running the streets, doing whatever he want to do. If you had just got that guy in the timing you wanted, he would have been crazy. But God is like, I love you too much to give you what you want right now. It's not the proper time. Perhaps you're praying for a job and you're like, God, I really want a new job. I really need this job. Maybe the boss that is on that job, that would have been your boss if you would have got that job, maybe that boss is somebody who you would have just clashed with, and it just would have just took you out and took you down. And God was like, I don't want that for my child right now. I'm gonna wait until someone else gets into that position and then I can let her go there. So these are the things that we have to think about when we're frustrated with time. There's a reason why the Lord hasn't allowed something to move yet. But I'm gonna tell you one thing. When the Lord is ready for you to move and when the timing is right, it is going to happen. I'm going to share a little bit of my testimony right here. So I have been trying to buy a house for years. When I say years, I mean years, 2 years. I was trying to be an independent woman, buy my house by myself. I did this, and that's fine and dandy, but it didn't happen. Okay, it did not happen. And so I was frustrated. I was like, God, I've been waiting, I've been trying, I've been waiting, I've been trying, and God, why can't I get a house? So in August of 2022, I went to look at this apartment because I was so mad, and I was like, God, I'm frustrated. I'm just gonna go move in an apartment. I went to look at this apartment, and the apartment at that time was $1,500 for 600 and something square feet. Insanity, okay? Insanity. So I drove down the road back home, and at this time I was commuting to work. My commute to work was 1 hour and 20 minutes every single day. And so I was frustrated, I was mad, I went home. Fast forward to November of 2022, I was driving down the road, coming home from my commute, and that apartment that I went to view in August popped back into my spirit. And so I stopped at my cousin's house and I applied for the apartment right at my cousin's house. This was like 5:00 p.m. I told my parents, I was like, you know, I think I'm gonna apply for an apartment. I'm gonna see how this goes. The next day at 10 a.m., I got approved for the apartment. I got an apartment bigger than the one that I saw for a cheaper price. So that apartment that I looked at was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 600 and something square feet for $1,500. I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath for less than that. And it's more square feet. And so I look at the timing of God. It wasn't my time to get a house, and it wasn't my timing to get an apartment in August. My timing was November, and the Lord knew exactly when and why I needed that apartment when I got it. And so I just wanted to say that to encourage you. If you're frustrated with a delay, if you're frustrated because you feel like, God, you forgot about me, I don't understand why this is taking so long, there's a reason why. And I want you to press into that Kairos time. And so it's just amazing to see the faithfulness of God when you are operating on his time. And so the Lord moved very quickly. So I said the next day I got approved at 10 a.m. The next day was my moving day. And I was like, guys, this is a little fast. I'm going to need you to move that move-in date. It was quick. Because when you are on God's timing, he's going to let things go fast for you. But that's if you understand the Kairos timing. If you are going to try to force God to move in your timing, you are going to lose that battle and you're going to be frustrated. So when we look here at Solomon, we see that Solomon again is saying there is a purpose for every activity under the sun. And so I want to jump forward to the New Testament, and I want us to take a look at a passage in the Bible where it seems like Jesus was a little bit late. So I want to sum up a passage for you, which is Mark 5:21 through 42. So in this passage, Jesus is out and about doing ministry, and a ruler from the synagogue named Jairus comes to him and says, Jesus, my daughter is about to die. And so Jesus follows him to his house. But while Jesus is going to Jairus' house, a woman with an issue of blood touches his hem of his garment. And Jesus stops and pauses, and he's like, who touched me? Mind you, there's a bunch, this is a crowd. So there's a bunch of people who is around him. But Jesus was like, who touched me? And his disciple says, what you mean who touched you? Like, it's a bunch of people. And Jesus was like, I felt the power go out of me. And the woman is like, I touched you. And Jesus is like, woman, be healed, for your faith has made you well, and you have great faith. So then someone comes up to Jairus and says, your daughter has died. But Jesus continues to go to Jairus' house. And when he gets there, he hears a bunch of people crying. And Jesus is like, get out because y'all being extra. And then Jesus heals the daughter. So when we look at this passage, we see that there's a lot going on, right? So we see that the timing of God seems a little off. If someone was looking at this passage, one would say, if Jesus did not take time to stop and act like it was a big deal that this woman touched him when there was a big crowd of people anyway, the girl would have been healed before she died. But I think Jesus, in his infinite knowledge, knows what needed to be done in order for the faith to be increased. And so in what seemed like Jesus being a little late or a little off in his timing, what seemed like disaster to some people was blessing to another. If we could talk to Jairus and ask him, how was it to see Jesus raise your daughter from the dead? I am sure that Jairus would have said, it was painful to see my daughter die, but to see Jesus raise her from the dead is something that I will never forget. And you have to think, this is the first time too that Jesus has raised somebody from the dead. So even though Jesus told people not to spread the word, this spread. And so faith grew and people flocked to Jesus. And so we have to understand that the timing of God is not always about us, but a lot of times it's about those who are around us. I really want you guys to understand that God's timing is not something that we should be at war with. It's something that we should really revel in. If there's a delay, we should be like, okay, God, I know you're up to something big. I know you're up to something great. I know you're protecting me from something. That is what his timing does. And so guys, I just want you to really understand timing of God and really understand again the Kairos and the Chronos, because I feel like that can really encourage you when you're feeling like things are taking too long or things are going to be too slow. So another thing that I want to talk about too is that word season. So season in the Hebrew means appointed occasion. So I feel like a lot of times we use that word season so like flippantly. We're like, I'm in a season of singleness. I'm in a season of healing. I'm in a season of this. I'm in a season of that. Season is all about appointed time. So if we look at season as what it really means, which is appointed time, we should be happy in every season that we go through because we know that this is what God has for me at this appointed time. So perhaps we're in a season of waiting. We should be able to be joyful in that season of waiting, because obviously this is the appointed time that God has for you to be waiting. Or if we're in a season of singleness, this is the appointed time that God has for you to be single. Or if we're in a season of healing, this is the appointed time that God has for you to be healed. And so we shouldn't be fighting against our seasons or being upset because we're in a particular season that we don't like, because that too is an appointed time by God. As we talked about, God is all about precision. He's all about doing things at an opportune time. And so we have to learn how to operate in God's timing and to also enjoy every season that He brings towards us. So if we just look at seasons naturally, right? We have fall, we have winter, spring, and summer. Some of us don't like certain seasons, some of us do like the other seasons, but every season is beneficial and produces something, right? So in fall, leaves are falling, things are falling down, and it's preparing for winter, where we go into a season of what seems like things are dead, but really things are working underneath the surface. Then spring comes and all of a sudden we just see random stuff start popping up. Those things didn't just randomly pop up. They were all there in the winter. And then summer comes and things are blooming and things are coming out even more. And then the cycle repeats. So we see that every season is fruitful and beneficial. So guys, before I end this video, I just really want to again encourage you. Fall in love with the timing of God. As Solomon talked about, there is a time and a season and a purpose for every activity under the sun, under heaven, and on earth. And that timing falls into God's Kairos time. Don't fight the Kairos with the Chronos. You need to be in step with God. You are not going to win trying to have this linear, quantitative, sequential way of thinking about time. If you are a believer and if you love the Lord, you're going to understand that God is all about precision. He's all about accuracy. He's all about when can this happen so that it is the most opportune for my child. And that's something that we should be so amazed by, because our God loves us so much that He's not going to let us have something when we want it if it's not the right time. All right, guys, we've reached the end of the video. I am so excited that you decided to share your Sunday with me. Throughout your week, I just want you guys to be encouraged and rest in the beautiful timing of God. Also, press into that Kairos timing and operate in the same timing that God has for you. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and hit that notification bell so that you can get notified every single time a video is uploaded. As always, guys, I love you. God loves you. See you soon.